chances to make decisions, and we are Adventists. Let's practice true Adventism so that the juniors that are getting employed can have a leeway to go to church. But if as a boss you begin to tamper with the Sabbath, it will be difficult to allow a junior person to go to church, but just because you will be the example. So let's be practicing Adventists. Otherwise, we may be, I don't know how to put it. We will prevent chances for the junior employee to practice his conscience because you will be the example. So let's be Adventists, not only Adventists, let's be practicing Adventists. And again, let's give freedom of conscience to all people that are under us, even in the house. Even your brother who is a Catholic, he has come visiting you. You can take him to church. In fact, when they visit your house and they say, I think I cannot go to church with you, leave them. You can't do that in my house. If you knew, then on Friday go back home. No. On Sabbath you go with me to church, or else on Friday go back home. No. It's their right. Let them practice their conscience.
Yes, Elder Osabe.
I just want to make a comment still on this thought, and this is a little on a controversial note, but I know here I'm with people who've been to school, so you can handle even ideas that you disagree with, isn't it? That's the mark of an educated mind. Now, I want to talk about our institutions. You know, we Adventists have gone through, in our formative years, we've gone through institutions that are not ours. In secondary school, in university, and so on. And in those institutions, we are very active in demanding our religious rights to be protected, right? And by and large, they are protected. You go to a secular university, even a denominated university, like Catholic University up the road, SDA group is allowed to meet, yeah? I'm sure Daystar allows. Now the question is, when it comes to our institutions, are we extending the same rights to non-Adventists? If you go to Baraton, for example, do we allow the CU people to meet? Yeah? Catholic, I don't know how we'll do it, because for a mass to happen, a dead body must be present. You know that, right? At the altar where the person speaks from. You need a hand or a leg ya mtu amefariki, or a full body for that. You guys don't know this. Why are you looking at me quizzically? I'm talking facts, yeah? Yeah, it's just go Google it after church. It's true, a mass cannot happen in the absence of a dead body. Yeah, that's standard. Even the Catholic church next to your home has your mzoga hapo ndani. So I wonder how we'll do it in an Adventist institution. So that's my question. I don't know if it's difficult, and maybe we can't do anything about it, but maybe it's just food for thought, right?
Yes.
Do we give others their right also in our Adventist institutions? Thank you.
And maybe to complicate it a little bit more, you ask a valid question, and our dinner table at home is usually very controversial when we have conversations. So, because I feel like as Adventists, we are the beginning and the end of everything usually. I don't want to use we can be very intolerant sometimes, I think. And because of that, that's why the issue you've raised for me is touching close to home. Because when you go to other places, you demand that your religious liberty be respected. But when people come to us, how do we then treat them? How do we interact with them? Do we accord them that? Do we extend that same privilege to them? And Pastor said that in our interaction with people, let them experience us and see that Adventism coming. Let's not shove it down their throats that, we are Adventists, this is the message, this is how we do things. But I hear you, I don't have an answer. It's something I struggle with all the time, and maybe Pastor has experience, but I hear you, especially around the whole school thing. At work, maybe it's different, because maybe you fought it and you are a bit of an adult, so. But as you're growing up also, I think it might be because it's your parents who are Adventists, and they're fighting for your space with you. So, it's Sabbath, you're not supposed to go to class on Saturday, but maybe after you turn 18, you realize, maybe now I can make some decisions, and then I become a lukewarm Adventist, for lack of a better term, because you have a bit of freedom, because you're no longer under your parents' roof. So even sometimes I think as we are raised as Adventists, sometimes after we leave our parents' homes, because there's this freedom that has suddenly come to us because we are in charge of our time, we are not so inside the church, for lack of a better term, I don't know. But it's something we need to think about as well as Adventists. How do we ensure that when we are raising our children, we encourage them to continue practicing the Adventist faith and in the lifestyle, like Pastor said, of being an Adventist? Yes. Elder Mwembe, then Elder Baba.
I think that's a serious, it's a serious question that needs to be tackled. But I want to start from where Pastor talked about two adults working together as friends, and they decided to sit by you called it, here we call it BAR, something like that. Bottle stop, yes. You made a conscious decision to follow your friend, is that right?
Yeah, because in the first place, I didn't know where he was taking me.
All right. Pastor, I don't want you to explain. You made a conscious decision to follow your friend to a bottle stop. And you stood there until you got your Fanta. Is that right? Yes. So when you got there, you knew there's a problem, or it was okay?
To me, it was okay. I knew the guy.
Exactly. Now, I'm going back to your question. Institutions are established on some principles. And these principles are so clear from the inception. So when you make a decision, informed decision, that I am going to study in an Adventist institution, there are prescribed principles and rules and policies that you have to sign up and agree that this is the way I'm going to be. It's just like marriage. You live and you cleave. That where you go, I will go. It's a choice. Nobody pushes you to go to that direction. Therefore, if Adventists insist on particular principles, that is it. Because you made a conscious choice, an informed decision to get to that institution. Two is just like we have Catholic institutions. Catholic institutions have their own principles, which you cannot change. They've given you a leeway, or given us a leeway from their point of reasoning, that you have your leeway to do whatever you want. I'm talking about private institutions. Now, when we get to the public institutions, schools, universities, colleges. These are public institutions. So I think the bottom line must be understood when we are talking about religious liberty and the development of most of the institutions and how they operate, so that we put all this together and understand why SDAs or in the Adventist institutions,
if today I chose to sign up to an Adventist institution or organization, and when I was signing up, there were certain rules and regulations that were in place, and I signed on the dotted line, can I not raise the issue if it is not a public institution? I'm asking from what you've said.
This is what I meant when I talk about regulations within an institution. You see, when you sign for it, you are signing on the regulations of that institution. That is the bottom line. Any other thing is like, an imagination. So if now you want your personal objective to be achieved, it has to align with the policies of that particular institution. And if it's not, the institution will not stop you from worshiping, but probably worshiping in a way that will go against their regulations. That you will be stopped, including the SDA or the Adventist institutions. They cannot stop Catholics from going out to worship. You still have the freedom to worship. But within the institutions, there are principles that govern that institution that you cannot change.
And we should abide by them.
Yes.
Because we signed up and we understood what they were. Okay.
To bring it home, let me just add, to make it real. A young girl here makes a decision to get married to a Catholic home. That home has its orders. You will not take your SDA religion and force it in that home. You will abide by what they say. It is your character that will pull them towards you. That is what I'm calling religious liberty. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. We share a table at times with the speaker, and we do argue from time to time. This liberty, does it go together with intolerance? In practicing my liberty, can I have intolerance for other people's views and the way they do things and suppress them? And that's a question. Number two, within us, okay, we've been talking us and them. Now within us, is there intolerance? Is there liberty? If I stand here, I think 2 or 3 of us have said what I'm going to say is controversial. Are we saying this because we have a bit of intolerance to some views within us as well? If I come here and I say this is the way I am understanding this and I want to expound on it, will I be called an offshoot? Because I don't see it the way my brother here is seeing it. So I think let's look at it along that line as well, internally. I like what Elder Tom said, that we are in a society here, at least in this church today, or in this church, where school fees has been paid, if I can quote our preacher from last week. And because fees has been paid, we should be able to stand some arguments. We should be able to listen and try and reason. It's not red or black. You should be able to discuss. But like I said in the morning, we can also make it complicated for nothing. Our life could be simple. Sometimes we argue and argue for the sake of winning cases. I'm not saying anything about lawyers, but we could miss the point and argue for the sake of it. But I think intolerance and liberty, sometimes I think they are very close. And as I exercise my liberty, I'm also being intolerant to the other people.
Thank you. There was a hand behind you.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
Religious liberty and intolerant. You know, when Elder was speaking, that if you sign up to a particular institution, you have to, in another word, I, for one, went to, okay, I want to start with the point, my first point is, I think this thing of religious liberty is a bit vague. It's not usually too clear. I, for one, went to a Catholic institution in high school. No one ever told us we'd go for Mass. Like, it was not in the rules and regulation that I have to go for Mass every Tuesday or Saturday in the evening. And I remember the punishment that I'll never forget when I was in high school is I was slapped by a sister on a Tuesday morning because everyone was kneeling and I was sleeping, and yes. And the stories I've heard about Baraton, maybe people who went to Adventist institutions can confirm, that people are actually forced, for lack of a better word, to go to church on Saturday, to go to church or Vespers or whatever thing. I am interested to know, for those who have attended Adventist institution, if it's there in their rules and regulations that here we worship on Saturday, and so you have to abide by that. I think it should be very clear, such that by the time I get to that school, I know this is something that is going to happen. So I have to decide. So if people who went to these schools are here can help us confirm. Number one. Oh, your hand is up. Sorry? Oh, okay. Yes, and then the other thing when it comes to religious liberty, this is just something that has been on my mind, and I'm not going to open that Pandora's box. Every time I hear about LGBTQ, we all know what that is, right? Lesbians, gays, transgender, plus. We are very intolerant in our own way as Adventists. And it baffles. I start to think about it 5 years from now. When those things face us, how will we deal? If we can't stand people who braid their hair.
Food for thought.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. Yeah, I went to Segero, and one of the rules was that, okay, the verse they were following was the one for Joshua. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So we don't want to, so when we were admitted, okay, I'm from an Adventist family, so that was not an issue, yeah? And I didn't hear people having issues because the ones who wanted to go to church on Sunday, they had to go to church on Saturday. They could not read, okay? When we look at the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 10, it says, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord, and in it shalt thou not do any work, nor thy son, thy daughter, thy manservant, thy maidservant. Now I'm thinking, assuming I'm a founder, okay? And then let's just assume, yes, I'm a founder, and we are recruiting people to my farm, yes? Okay. So someone comes and says, okay, I go to church on Sunday. Religious liberty would dictate that I let them go to church on Sunday, right? But for me, you see, no one should be working. Maid servant, man servant. So they're entitled to 2 days off. Saturday, because they should not be working for me, right? If they want to go do their things, it's okay, but they're not working for me. Yeah? On Sunday, religious liberty dictates that I let them do what they have to do. Yes, Paruzana, okay, for me, I'll feel bad, okay. You should be coming to work on Saturday, right? On Sunday. Because 6 days you shall work. But you can't work for me on Saturday as well. Yes. So for me, I think for us to have this religious liberty, we must allow everyone to, but also think about your conscience. Don't let people work on Sabbath. Like I was going to, yesterday I was on It Is Written and I wanted to buy a book, but I was going to the shop and it was written closed for Sabbath. And I said, okay, and it's actually religious liberty, okay, I can't buy, which is a good thing, yeah? Which informed me that I should be buying on other days, but not yesterday. And it was actually yesterday evening, and I guess it was not Sabbath on their end. Yeah, so, yes, I think it goes two ways. Your conscience is also.
Yeah, and I think that's what Pastor is encouraging us to think about, that in our interaction with other people who are not Adventists, it's the liberty is about your conscience and how you choose to worship. And that through our actions and our interactions with people, they should then feel drawn to us and not us forcing them or being intolerant towards them because they are not Adventists. So that in the way that we are living our lives, then we are that sermon that they are then seeing and hearing, and they then make a decision to be one of us because of how we are living our lives and how we are following Christ. There was a hand or some, all right.
Yeah, let me just emphasize something that Elder Mwembe said. I have had this opportunity to be in very varied backgrounds, to Baraton. Before you go there, you have to sign to the rules that you will abide by the regulations. And it is not just going to church. I don't know whether it still happens, but during my time in Baraton, there is a seat meant for you that if you miss that seat, it means you are not abiding by the rules. And at some point, you will be given a warning letter because you sign for that when you are joining, that you will abide by the rules and regulations of the institution. And that is private. And we have the opportunity to decide not to go there if it is too much for you. And not just that, when you go to the cafeteria, they don't serve flesh. Yes, it's vegetarian diet the whole time. So you have the option of going there or not going there. I've been to a public university. It is free for all. You have been given the opportunity to worship. If you are Adventist, we have the SDA group. If you are other denominations, I mean, there's Catholic, we have the CU, all sorts of denominations are there, and they're free to practice. I think that is what Elder was emphasizing. I've also had the opportunity during my high school, I had the opportunity to be in a Muslim school, and you have it by the regulations. Yes, because at 12 on Friday, they go to the mosque, and some of them come wearing their attire, because they are preparing for that Friday worship. See them walk out and they go, and of course, we are not forced to go to the mosque. So I think the underlying point here is that we have those particular institutions, even Catholic institutions were very strict, that you have to abide by their regulations. And so you don't have to go there and say, no, me, I'm an Adventist, and I have to practice mine here. We have the opportunity to go to those Adventist institutions or public or secular institutions where you can practice your religion. And I'm glad that Sister Rachel brought it out, that we have the freedom of worship in this country. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There was a hand. Do you want to come?
Oh, you want? Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Okay. So maybe I'll just start with the short story. Like my sister said, I also went to a Catholic school. And once I was also sleeping in mass, and I was slapped. And at that point, it felt like persecution, you know. But we had an Adventist group that was very active. And the funny thing is that, the priest liked us. So after Mass, he would invite us to sing our Adventist songs, right? So my question, of the regulations of an institution govern people's lives over, let's say, the laws of the country? Because I assume, like whatever we do in our private institutions should not override the Constitution, right? And as believers, part of the reason we're even here today is that we're also trying to protect, the laws that we believe in that are higher than the laws of the country, right? So an example, let's like at work, you can't tell people that, say that this is how we work here, right? So my question then is, how do the laws of the country affect our private institutions? So it's whether you're Catholic or Adventist and you say this is how we do things, then how does the law of the country then come in? From what I understand, I think we have 5 working days. That's what I assume. So whether you want to worship on Saturday or Sunday, you're kind of free to do that. So that's really my struggle. Like, how do you reconcile that? Okay, this is what we do here, but then the country says that, okay, so people are free to do this. And hence we even go to court if you go to an institution that does not allow you the liberty to, practice your religion. So then we go to court and say that this is against the Constitution and stuff. So, maybe if you could just address that, because I think it was pretty cool that we were allowed to sing, even though there was a bit of persecution, but it was. That's fine.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the hierarchy of laws, for lack of a better term, I think it takes us back to what Elder Mwembe had said. When you go to a public institution, it's a public institution for all by the laws of the land. And the law of the land stipulates that working days are Monday to Friday, or school days are Monday to Friday, and therefore we are free to worship on Sabbath and on Sunday without any issues. I think there'll be exceptional circumstances where people will be called into work or to school over the weekend. But I think the tricky bit is usually in a private, is to what the country or what the law is. So I think for me, to what the country or what the law is. So I think for me, the way to go about it is, I think, I'm a fighter, so usually I lead with, I'm an Adventist, thank you for the opportunity. Can we have a conversation about this? And then we see how it goes. So that if it's not working, I don't sign on the dotted line. For me, that's how I look at it. But it's not everybody has that privilege to have that conversation and still continue being there. So I think looking at where you are, I think, and having a conversation and seeing if you can work around it. If it doesn't, then I'm not sure I have an answer, because then I'd say, can you demonstrate that what you were asked to come and do on Saturday, you have done by Friday? Maybe. And it's maybe just looking at your context and seeing how you can go about it. Pastor, we are about to wind up.
Let me answer on privately whatsoever. We have UEAB, University of Western Africa, Baraton, an Adventist. And by the way, those Adventist universities or institutions are meant for you and me, for Adventists. And those Catholic universities are meant for Catholics. Let's be honest with that. They are meant for Catholics. Adventist universities are meant for Adventist children. So when you go there as an Adventist child at Baraton, at the AUA, Bugema, whatsoever, Solusi, you come and join us. As long as they abide by the Seventh-day Adventist laws. Malawi Adventist University was opened in 2004. And like you said, almost every other Adventist institution in the world doesn't offer meat. It's not only Baraton, elsewhere in the Seventh-day Adventist, even AUA. We're crying for meat there, but you can't eat it. Elsewhere, meat is not supposed to be offered in the Adventist institution. So the school is open in 2004. here, some Catholics, Muslims, whatsoever. So you are not even allowed to take meat in the cafeteria, even if you have bought it. If you want to eat meat, outside the cafeteria. So that the guys are murmuring. He says, no, this school is built for Advent children who after when you left your homes, you knew that you were going to an Adventist university. Follow whatever the church says. Similarly, when you go to Catholic, you know already the principles that Catholics follow. And after all, they didn't invite you, you went by your own. Follow it. Nobody, the Catholics come to your house to say, come on, join our school. You went by yourself. So follow whatever they say. We cannot question to what extent does my freedom. No. Just follow. It's you who went there by your own. They never invited you. So follow. So whoever comes to Baraton, Bugema, whatsoever, follow. Whether you eat meat, you follow. And by the way, anyway, just follow. Don't when you are leaving your house to go to Catholic University in Nairobi, you already know there's a Baraton. You decided to go to Catholic, where they have laws different to whatever you subscribe yourself. Now, when you go there, you are saying the question of intolerance. When you have an idea in this church, and by the way, this church is grounded on the principles of the Bible. Now, whatever argument you have, if it is relevant in that it has backing in the Bible, let's talk. And by talking, it means you have to bring people that are knowledgeable to that. Sister White says in one of her writings to say, if you have a new light, seek people, talking of the church. Let me hear from you. When Sister White says, if you think we have a new light, don't impose it on the people, but seek those that have experience. Who are the people with experience in this church? Who are the people in terms of theology? Who are the people who have experience in this church? Pastors. Not any other person, a pastor. So when you take it to the pastor and the pastor says, no, I think we are going astray, just listen. Those are the people with experience. When you are applying for work as a teacher and they say 5 years experience, they mean experience in that field. Understand? They mean the experience in you are a bank. You're applying a job as a banker. It means you're an accountant. 5 years experience. You cannot bring your experience as a pastor. No, I was a pastor at Bugema. This is my experience. No, they want an accountant. So similarly here in the church, when you have an issue, you think it's bothering you, you think you can pull a teaching from that. Seek men of experience. And in this church, men of experience are theologians. So theologians will take that issue, they will discuss, they will digest it, they will mutilate it, and they will bring a teaching. Now when they don't listen, when they don't subscribe to whatever you're saying, and says, whatever you are saying, brother, I think it's not in the Bible. Just listen. Don't begin to go, this church is fallen. Yeah, pastors have been bought, whatsoever. No, listen. Listen. We have a forum where we take all these challenging issues. Just listen. I know, I have one problem with the Seventh-day Adventist. I have one problem. That is me, as a Brian Chafunyi, not as a pastor.